Good afternoon, everybody. Very pleased to be here. My name is Maxine Roper. I'm co-founder of Connecting Food. We are helping brands and food actors to trace and audit digitally the different products that they are producing from the farm right down to the end product, and also to be able to showcase all the different actors behind and what they're actually doing to the end consumer. So I'm very pleased to be here with Suranga from English Tea Shop, who will present himself, to be able to talk about specifically different technologies, like how blockchain can promote positive impact, build trust in brands, and also to improve the efficiencies in today's complex supply chains.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Can you hear me well? Yeah. I'm CEO of English Tea Shop Organic. We believe that we've created a revolution in the organic or the tea industry because we were founded to create an empowering revolution in organic farming and employee ownership. We moved out of a traditional, commonly shared auction system way back in 2010 so that we could prove that we would build farmers better. And a few years later, we started an open book management practice so that we could start building our employees better, which has now led to us being significantly employee-owned. So with that in mind, when we met Maxine and her team in 2020, we partnered with them to see whether we could have a system, use technology like blockchain to create a collaboration right across the value chain to enhance the sustainability impact that we had promised, and also to allow our customers, consumers to connect with the back end, with the farmers, with the field, with our own people through this technology to really trust and to create a transparent relationship across the value chain to keep that bond and keep that ambition in practice. Thank you.
So just a little bit of background. Also, I think at the moment we're all seeing these different the current context. Where managing supply has also become very strategic. It's become very central in food companies specifically, with the imbalance in supply that we're all seeing with the pandemic since 2020, 2019 in fact, and the Ukrainian war. Also climate change, which is making food production more complicated. Also the consumer becoming a lot more aware of a lot of different things, such as food waste, environmental impact, and also the ethical issues that in terms of producing food, which are becoming very important. And so tomorrow, the leading brands, we believe, are the ones that can actually manage their supply chains to make them transparent, to know where the food has come from, and also purpose-led. Who has produced that food at every single level, how it's produced in terms of the environment and the different impacts as well. Also, resilient supply chains. It's very important to be actually creating these strategic partnerships with different actors along the supply chain that are actually producing that food is very important for tomorrow, as we see in disrupting supply. And obviously efficiency is also a point important to be able to get the food everywhere in the world. So tomorrow's food supply chains will actually need to be data-driven based on information which exists today. So really, I think English Tea Shop, Connecting Food and English Tea Shop, we've been working together. And what we want to do is really share with you the objectives of the brand, which Suranga will outline.
Thanks, Maxine. So when it came to the core objectives, it resonated very well with the founding purpose of the business because we believe in that radical, revolution that we were founded for. So what we wanted to create was to translate or transform our business from making annual sustainability reports to a lot of marketing efforts to kind of prove and evidence the sustainability work that we do with our people and our farmers, to challenge Connecting Food to see whether each purchase of any of our product could really help us kind of connect with the mindful, conscious consumer, to prove that every transaction and every activity of the business really resembled what we were saying that we were doing. So that was like the core objective, because we knew the modern consumer, the mindful consumer, was very aware and very caring about the value chain, about where the food and drinks originate from, whether people behind those efforts were treated fairly. So that's like the core objective. And then through that, using technology, whether we would be able to create a collaboration, because global collaboration is a key for sustainability. And then, to have that trust and transparency through every activity, which is easier said than done, because I think we will talk about it in the next slide. But we have a very, very complex supply chain or a value chain. And then the bonus that came along with that, the customer-oriented ambition we had, was that we moved our, the ERP, the software that captures all of our sourcing, production, and global distribution, because we are in about 50 countries now, is that there is now an authenticator, now an auditor, who validates every transaction. Obviously, the challenge is how much of those data points, information, do we show it to the consumer? So that's still a big challenge, because we have to pick and choose as to what we think is more meaningful for the customers and the trade partners. But Connecting Food gets access to the entire database, which is good for us because it has natural controls, checks and balances, and they really have to do that authentication to verify that we really do what we say that we do. So that came as a bonus, because the entire supply chain has to live up to that promise as well, from the farmers, from the primary producers, to our own facility in Sri Lanka, where we have 300 of our own people, 3,000 small farmers. So that validation came as an extra bonus, which I think is very important to today's consumer, as well as to what we see and hear around us in terms of social inequalities, climate challenges, nature challenges, all of what we are promising, whether we are really doing them authentically.
Exactly. Exactly, and Suranga was saying that the supply chain is complex, and what is interesting from a technical point of view, to be able to manage complex supply chains, is the notion of digital twins of a product. A digital twin of a product is basically the twin of the physical product, which, as it's moving through a supply chain, will have more and more information associated with that product. And what is interesting is, obviously, all the information exists in some format or another, at the level of the farm, at the level of different suppliers, the different quality controls in a plant, also through to the retailer. It could be simple traceability information, or it could be all the auditing information that English Tea Shop is already doing with their different products. It can also be organize that information. Doing it through a digital twin means it can be reorganized in different ways later on, because later on maybe their objectives may be to be talking about one thing today in terms of what's actually happening at the farm level with the people that are producing it, and maybe something else tomorrow. So that information can also be extracted and presented to the consumer, to shareholders, or to clients, retailers. And that's the whole beauty of having a digital twin, which is extremely flexible for managing that complexity, and to be able to showcase it afterwards. So there is some quite interesting figures in terms of the complexity, which I'll let Suranga present.
Yeah, thank you. It's much more complex than it sounds on paper or on a presentation, because we work with over 100 cooperatives organized under 19 primary producers, and we work with almost about 50 countries. And the 157 SKUs that you see on the screen are largely multi-ingredient assortment gift packs. So if you come to Hall 7, where we have our stand, H326, you'll see some of our products with just 25 servings, 25 tea bags, having hundreds of ingredients in a single pack. And then we freshly produce most of them to each market, so we're talking of very small production batches to each of these markets. So to capture all of that data and to be able to have that QR code revealing the transparent and the food security related or sustainability related information that consumers, we believe that consumers would like to see. And also for things like auditing, as Maxine alluded to, is a very, very complex task. It took about 2 years. In fact, Connecting Food is like the third partner we reached out to. We've started looking at this since 2018. We've looked at very complex, leading technology suppliers, leading ERP providers, but most of them have a very singular sort of a focus on sustainability. So the blockchain applications they had either looked at food security angle of it, the safety side of it, or the dates, revealing the dates when a thing was either harvested or produced. So it was very difficult for us to find a solution which had a holistic overview to sustainability the way we see it. And that's what Connecting Food provided us. And it still took 2 years for us to really map out, and link our ERP with their blockchain architecture. Thanks, Maxine.
Mm-hmm. And the underlying technical layer as well is blockchain, as we were saying before. Blockchain is just an enabler. It's just something that makes it easier to be able to share information between different actors that may not have the same objectives, and also that can also have, obviously it could be a client supplier, it could be all different actors that that have their own secrets that they don't necessarily want everything to be shown. So the encryption side of blockchain is very important. The tamper-proof side as well. Once something is registered on the blockchain, it means you can't change it afterwards, which is very interesting as well. And the secure data ownership. When information is on a blockchain, you know exactly who it belongs to, which is an important point also for the future, which also helps share information more easily from the trust point of view and knowing that it is encrypted. So the blockchain basically is a tamper-proof ledger which is distributed among different actors that are actually participating and which facilitates the process of that sharing information in terms of transactions. So the information can go, it can go very far. It can actually be information on how much people are being paid to produce something, and it can be information which is obviously quite sensitive in certain ways, but which may be chosen to be shown later on to say this is a real purposeful supply chain where people are actually being fairly treated, etc. So there is a lot of possibilities with blockchain, but it's just an underlying enabler to be sharing data. And I think what's interesting is really to see the end result through English Tea Shop, and you can actually scan the QR code on the presentation. I don't know if you may be too far away or if you can capture that QR code, but it's also a pack that will be circulated. But, yeah. So maybe you want to talk about...
Yeah, so this is the first phase of the application being used in our everyday ranges, and it's now been translated onto the gifting ranges. And the first consignments have started leaving our factory in Sri Lanka since the beginning of October. So what you would see when you scan the products are, the lot batch, obviously a verification of the lot batch. The digital twin confirming that what you hold in your hand is what's really done at the back end. And several pillars of information on one hand, we believe, I think it boils down to what the brand wants to achieve. So we had this founding ambition for transparency and trust, and to really prove that we were building people better, whether it's organic farms or whether it's our own employees. So transparency was a key factor for us. So one of the pillars relate to, we believe that consumers want to see or know exactly what they put in their bodies. So all of our packaging contains, or the QR reveals 100% of the ingredients, recipes, whether it's a typical everyday blend or whether it's a very high-end functional or a well-being blend. We still believe in telling people what exactly is in that. So how we've used the portal was to really connect to the brand's purpose. What do we really want to achieve as a brand, and how do we create this trust, and how do we collaborate on this sustainability journey? And there is information about where the ingredients come from. So we put names, and we've revealed everything, where the farmers are, and the journey they take, the ingredient, the journey that takes from the farm to our factories and to the world. And things like taste notes, the way the the blenders work around with them, the dates on which they were sourced, blended, produced, and there's quite a bit of information on the packaging side of it, the recyclability, the compostability, or the reusability, and there is also the pillar on connecting food, authenticating the certifications that we are claiming to have, whether it's organic, whether it's quality systems, whether it's ethical certifications like SMETA, so their blocks has to pass on. So the production will not be able to proceed to a subsequent level unless we meet those criteria that are defined at each level. And then at the very end, you would see that we want, obviously, consumers to connect with our holistic sustainability approach. So we invite them onto our website or to download our sustainability reports. But I think when we talk about the next phases, it excites us that we are all willing to go even more radical in terms of what we want to reveal. Thanks, Maxine.
Okay. And you can also see the dates, which are the date at that particular batch of product, which is live. We could say it's live because it's coming right the way through. All the batches have been put together, and you know the date that it has gone through the different stages on the supply chain. And you can also see a map where you see the exact suppliers that have, or the actors that have actually participated at that particular box of tea. So we'll talk a little bit about the future.
Yeah, so now the two teams are, gathered, talking together as to how much more radical we can be, because that's, again, connects with what we want to achieve as a brand. Can we prove to the world through every purchase, through every product, through every blend that you scan, the income levels of our farmers, which I think is of paramount importance, which a lot of brands, a lot of trade is ignoring right now at the moment. So we want to challenge ourselves and to show, what it really means to be farming and then to be working with brands like English Tea Shop. Is it really true, when we say that we are building people better? But I guess there'll be all sorts of challenges when we do this, but we got to start with revealing the true situation and then identify potential gaps and fix them. So in a nutshell, what we're looking at is even in terms of employees, we are significantly employee owned and will be majority employee owned in the next 5 years. What data coming from those employee building or employee empowerment or farmer empowerment can be interesting to customers, to the trade channels, and can we really stand out in having this very collaborative journey? And we also want to connect the customers in this sustainability journey. So there is quite a lot of exciting conversations happening between the teams as to what we're going to launch or what we're going to upgrade into in 2023. Thanks, Maxine.
Thank you. And I think there is also a very interesting, the actual pack that we have here has been selected by the SIAL, so nominated for the Breakthrough Innovation Award using the blockchain technology on the different teas. So that's also great news in terms of recognition. So that's really what we want to talk about in terms of blockchain technology and how we're applying it on food with the English Tea Shop. I don't know if you have any questions. We're available afterwards, but also to answer any questions you may have about what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Suranga and Maxine, for the presentation. I have one question for Suranga. Which is for your company the main outcome of this project? Because you talked about the transparency, sustainability, purpose-driven company, but at the end I think it's all about money, no? How much QR code are being scanned by consumer? Which is the main outcome for your company?
I think it's a very good question, because I don't think I have a very good answer, but I'll try. Because the founding ambition in 2010, we had a very luxurious, profitable tea business that we killed to build this one, right? So we moved out of the auction system and took a massive risk. It's always been about revolutions when it comes to English Tea Shop. It's taken a long, long time for us to kind of establish ourselves in some markets to have that credibility, but that's who we are. We're just radical, we are revolutionary, we are transparent, we just want to do crazy things, right? And in that, the single ambition when we met Maxine and the team 2 years back, and why we couldn't work out this solution with much larger established firms, was that we are, aiming at a very holistic, collaborative approach for sustainability. So all of what we're developing now, and I think we've gotten to a pretty decent level now over the last 2 years, and to be launching now, you could have launched like 1 year back if it was just one, ambition. So it's a series of, holistic goals that we've mapped out together, and connecting. I think the one single ambition is to make sure that our entire value chain collaborates and works together, because we ourselves can't be solving all of the problems of people, whether it's farmers or employees. If we are transparent enough, if people start trusting each other enough, and if we work together, I think we have a great chance of building the brand and then building the people and nature and climate, the whole thing together. So that's what we are aiming at. And we're challenging now. Yesterday we had quite a long meeting at Maxine's office, and we're kind of challenging them to challenge us to say what we should be doing. So we are very open-minded in this. It's money, yes, it's a capitalist model, which I believe is a very, we've got to be very open about it, but it's a very conscious capitalist model. And if we are able to solve people's issues through business, we will do that.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. I guess it's a question for both of you. One of the big challenges that I've seen facing blockchain is the ability to convince and to bring multiple parties on board to the same goal. Okay, so I would really love to hear about how was that message gone across to the supply chain or to the value chain before.
Yeah, we do have quite a lot of experience on a lot of different supply chains. I think what the most important thing is, blockchain will actually enable that more than if you don't use blockchain, because obviously you can have databases that are being shared, but sharing a database is not something that anybody is prepared to do. So having that underlying layer, it helps that. I think also what is important, because blockchain is just an enabler, so it can do some things, it can't do others. And it's a little bit like internet. What do you do with it? If we want to communicate, WhatsApp is a great way to communicate. Underneath there is the internet, and there is the encryption, etc. But we don't even really know about it. So what is important is that the overall system works really well, and that especially doesn't create extra work for anybody on the supply chain. So information exists. You need to be able to take it in its existing format and not create a big, a huge amount of work for people that are actually doing other things than putting information into a system. They're picking tea. They're doing a lot of other things which are a lot more interesting. The second point is also, I think, is that to be able to create value with that. So, for example, to be in line with the brand's promises, and to be able to go and look for that information that is interesting for each player. So, for example, for a brand to show something to the consumer, it's not always going to be the same kind of information. It could be varied. And to be able to do that in a very dynamic way is interesting also. But for the suppliers as well, we do have a lot of, we have examples on other supply chains also where the suppliers of some of the brands have become, they wanted to use the solution as well for them, not just to participate and supply the information, but also to use the different solution to be able to manage their supply chains, their complex product specifications, and all kinds of things like that. So as long as you're getting value out of it, you will participate. If it's too hard, no one will participate. So I think that's the key.
If I may add a point to that, I think one of the big challenges we had was we work with farming groups in Sri Lanka and elsewhere. So the technology challenge, even when there was willingness, how do you really do that? So when we initially chatted, we said we have budgets, funds allocated to ensure that we will set up these computers and internet connections, and maybe even pay for a couple of interns who can run their data capturing. So we had to do that in few places, but in few places we couldn't. But the good thing about the organic industry is there is a documented trail, a well-established very transparent and a very high-level documentary trail that's already happening. So we're now having to run, or enter, because we went blockchain thinking that we could go decentralized right to the bottom, but in a practical sense, you can't do that, all the places. But for us, for our good luck, I guess we're inorganic, and it's already capturing the audits that every batch of ingredient that comes from a farming group, whether it is in a faraway corner of the country or a remote place, it's still tracked, audited, and it accompanies a verified, in our case, EU certified organic transaction certificate, which our teams can pick up and kind of enter. So it is a challenge, but it's a journey that we got to go together. We welcome you to come and have a cup of tea at our booth, Hall 7. We do teas as well as gin botanicals later in the day, if you care for gin botanical. Teas directly infused in gin, if anyone cares for that, and then an experience of blockchain. Thank you.